Snooker was huge during the 80s and 90s, with packed arenas and massive audiences. But unlike other sports that kept growing and adapting to today's world, snooker didn't quite follow the same path. And this has been noticed by some of the snooker's top players themselves, who are now saying it straight that snooker is dying. But how did a sport so rich in tradition and talent reach a point where its own icons are questioning its future? Let's hear this straight from Ronnie O'Sullivan himself. He stirred things up by saying that, for most players, a snooker career is basically a waste of a life. Coming from one of the greatest players in the game's history, the comment hit hard. Ronnie explained that he often tells young kids and their parents not to bother with snooker, and when it comes to his own kids, he's made it clear that if they choose snooker, they're doing it without his support. To him, snooker is a tough and damaging sport. He warned that unless a player is among the very top names like Hendry, Davis, Williams, or himself, then one might want to think twice.
Do you think that we get enough support for snooker in the UK for young talent?
Obviously not, and I think that's down to the Snooker Association to fund that, to do that, to make facilities available. Yeah, I think that's who should really maybe invest money in it. But like I said, I'll be honest with you, if I had a son, I wouldn't let him play snooker. So I get, you know, maybe it's a good thing there isn't the opportunity to play snooker, rather than play golf, rather than play football, rather than play tennis, rather than play curling, really. No, I'm only joking. No, but you see what I'm saying? I personally, you know, speaking if I had a child, wouldn't want them to play snooker. I really wouldn't. So,
as you can imagine, not everyone in the snooker world clapped for that speech. Even Mark Williams, a three-time world champion, replies to Ronnie's comment on Twitter, and we wonder why there's no youngsters coming through. It's a fair point. For the players who haven't won world titles or headlined major tournaments, snooker still means everything. They may not all have trophies lining their shelves, but they're doing something they love. And for many, that's enough. Stephen Hallworth is one of them. He's 25, currently on his second stint as a professional and trying to make his way up the rankings. And unlike some, Stephen knows what life outside the snooker table looks like because he's living it. He even works in a bar to help cover his bills. When asked if he ever thinks about giving it up for a different job, he said no. Snooker might be tough, but to him, it's worth it. Some nights, after a long shift wiping down counters or mopping the bar floor, he often catches himself thinking how much he hates his job. But instead of feeling defeated, it pushes him harder. That's when he reminds himself that he has to work even more on the table tomorrow because he doesn't want to be doing this forever. One player put it simply, in their eyes, everyone just wants to compete, earn a decent living, and enjoy the game. After all, there are far worse ways to spend a life than traveling the world and knocking balls into pockets. Michael Holt, known as the Hitman, has been around since the 90s. He finally picked up his first ranking title at the 2020 shootout, and while it wasn't the World Championship, a win's a win. For him, snooker has given more than just trophies. It gave him a lifestyle many would envy. He admitted his career didn't look like Ronnie's, but what did the game give him? It was more than enough. He's earned a living for over 20 years, and now, with 2 young kids, snooker allows him something rare in modern life: time. He doesn't have to leave home at 6:30 a.m. or miss all the little moments. For that, he's blessed. Of course, it's not all sunshine and trophy lifts. Snooker is a brutal sport if you're not in the mood to spend hours alone staring at a cue ball, wondering where it all went wrong. Players put in serious time and often deal with long, dry spells, but those sacrifices, most of them are willing to make them. Michael added that being a snooker player can be horrible sometimes. You lose, you feel stuck, and the game starts messing with your head. But that's just part of the deal. If you can't handle the tough bits, then maybe don't play, because you'll be setting yourself up for a whole lot of nothing. Then there's Fergal O'Brien. He's been on tour since 1991, which is so long that some of his opponents weren't even born when he turned pro. He's won 1 ranking title in all those years, and yet if you offered him any other career in the world, he says he'd still pick snooker. For Fergal, it's not about the number of trophies. Sure, there are dark days and bad matches, but a bad day in snooker still better than sitting in traffic on the way to a job you hate. That's the kind of perspective only 30 years in the game can buy you. It's not just the players who wouldn't trade snooker for anything else. Even the people not holding cues are all in. Monika Sukovska spends her weekdays managing projects like a proper adult. But when her holidays roll around, she heads straight for the snooker table, but not to play. Monika's a referee on the World Snooker Tour, and she wouldn't dream of spending her precious free time doing anything else. She prefers counting balls and watching professionals argue with themselves silently. Monika said discovering a place where people actually talk, watch, and breathe snooker like she does was eye-opening. She called it a strong connection, like a weird but wholesome little family reunion. Of course, not everyone in the snooker world keeps things that are sweet and sentimental. Back in 2020, the Rocket stirred things up by saying that he'd have to lose an arm and a leg to drop out of the top 50 because the younger generation just wasn't bringing the heat. He wasn't trying to be rude, but just wanted to light a fire. For him, being doubted was like rocket fuel. So, he figured maybe if he threw out a spicy comment or two, someone out there would take it personally and train like a maniac. Ronnie's not losing sleep over it though. He said 10 people might think he's awful, but if the other 10 become better players because of his comments, then the job is done. He wouldn't have dared say something like that 15 years ago, but now he says he can get away with it.
Yeah, I don't feel that old. I mean, I know my age is, but I feel young in my mind. I feel young when I'm round the table. I feel a lot younger round the table than I do when I'm playing these young players. They look old, the way they, their brains are quite slow. So for me, I still feel like my brain's pretty quick around the snooker table, which is enough, So, yeah, they need to get their act together because I'm going blind. I've got a dodgy arm and bad knees. They still can't beat me.
And despite all the talk about how rough the snooker life can be, Ronnie's not exactly campaigning to shut it down. In fact, he's out here launching snooker academies across Asia. Naturally, Michael Holt couldn't resist poking fun at that. He laughed and said it's a bit funny how Ronnie keeps warning people not to get into snooker, but builds academies in China. Holt joked that most academies love plastering motivational quotes on the walls. Stuff like dream big or hard work equals success. But Ronnie's version, Holt imagined something a little more honest. Maybe a sign that says, "Don't play snooker, it's rubbish." Now that's motivation with a sense of humor. Anthony Hamilton, better known as the Sheriff, has been patrolling the Green Bays for over 30 years. He tried to explain what it's like being in a long-term relationship with snooker. He admitted things haven't always gone to plan. Not every shot landed, and not every tournament ended in celebration, but he has no regrets. He's made it into the top 10, played at the Crucible a dozen times, reached a few finals, and battled through plenty of tough matches in quiet sports halls with no cameras around. He explained that those matches, the tough ones that no one else saw, have stayed with him the most. In fact, he said some of his most cherished memories come from losses, not because of the result, but because the level of competition was so high. When both players are giving their best and only one can win, there's a certain beauty in that. Hamilton described snooker as a sport with nowhere to hide. It tests players on every level. Over time, he's grown to respect his fellow professionals even more. Many of them work hard, without the promise of big rewards. The prize money is respectable, but not life-changing for most. And the game itself, it rarely offers comfort. Most players leave tournaments feeling frustrated rather than fulfilled. Still, they keep coming back. For some, the stress and uncertainty become too much. But for others, like Hamilton, the game is still worth it. He admitted that he often tells himself he doesn't love snooker, but he knows he does. And that's a wrap on today's video. Do you agree with what Ronnie had to say about the future of snooker? And do you think snooker still has what it takes to rise again? Drop your thoughts in the comments. For more snooker content, click the screen below.